Prototype is really a book about all the ways in which we can be surprised to discover that we're more like Jesus than we think. Not in the sense that we're perfect, not in the sense that we're completely obedient to God all the time, but that we're loved by God in the same way that Jesus is. I really believe that from the very moment that Jesus hears the voice of his Father say, "You're my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased," that's the pivot point that really changes and shapes the rest of Jesus' life and ministry, is fully understanding that he's beloved. And that if we come to understand that we're loved by God in the same way that Jesus did, that also enables us to handle wounds the way that Jesus did, to handle rejection the way that Jesus did, to overcome wounds and fear and pain and rejection in the same way that Jesus did. That there's a way that by going through the same process that Jesus did of coming to understand our own belovedness, that enables us then to live in the same kind of victory and power that Jesus also lived in. I think that we have good reasons to be afraid sometimes to share our scars and to share our stories, because it really is true that there are people around us that if they know some of the things that are going on within our heads and hearts, that really might judge us for that. I love the little quote that says it's not paranoia if they really are out to get you. I mean, I think many of us grow up in environments where we have real reasons to fear sharing our story in a really candid way, because we really might be rejected if we share the truth of our story. That, for me, is what's so powerful about the whole idea of the love of God and the way that God loves us. Is it's so counterintuitive to those kinds of relationships. Here is a God who loves us not only in the things about us that are good and beautiful, but who is profoundly lovesick for us, even in our brokenness, and takes delight in us even in the places where we are broken. But that is, again, counterintuitive to a lot of the relationships that we have. So I think that's where learning how to experience the love of God requires us to unlearn a lot of the things that we've picked up from other human relationships. We do have relationships where we feel like if we put our best foot forward, we're going to be accepted. With God, it's almost the inverse of that. That the more vulnerable we are, the more raw we are, the more exposed we are in his presence, the more I think that invites his delight and invites his presence. So all the things for us that are disadvantageous about sharing our wounds and sharing our stories sometimes in the social structures that we're born into are, surprisingly enough, to our advantage to be shown in the presence of God. They're the things that actually bring him closer. I wrote Prototype really feeling like it's, in a lot of ways, the story of my life. It's there are a lot of big ideas in it, but it's largely a memoir too, because Prototype really was forged in the very real life experience for me of having to overcome my own fears, of having to overcome my own rejection. In fact, there were a lot of times when I was writing it where I would feel almost driven, like something was really compelling me along, because I realized that in the process of talking about how other people can encounter the belovedness of God. I think about Stanley Hauerwas likes to say sometimes that he figures out what he believes by writing, and sometimes that happens for me too, that I don't discover what I really think until I begin to write things down. So it was an interesting experience for me of having that same sense of discovery and surprise while writing the book that I hope the reader's going to experience. Even when I was setting out on the journey and had a sense of what I wanted to say, honestly coming to moments where I really was shocked and appalled and, in the best sense of the word, a little bit haunted even by just how loved I really am by God. So I hope that in a lot of ways that Prototyping will embody that same kind of sense of mystery and wonder that I was feeling when I was writing it, of really coming to really discover some of these things on kind of a gut level for the first time. My hope for you is that in discovering something of Jesus' journey and coming to know that he's the beloved of God, that you can discover that you're beloved for yourself. And that by coming to know the love of God in your own way, in the context of your own story, that it will also empower you to become the kind of overcoming person that Jesus was. So that your story too, even though it's full of brokenness, even though it's full of doubt and pain in the way that all of our stories are, can also become a profound story of redemption and extraordinary love.